let's bring on our very special guest. You all know her and love her, Liz Johnson from For Home. Yay! And once again, we figured out technology to go live. Yay!
It is so amazing, isn't it? We just never know what's going to happen, but
totally.
It is always a win. And so I had to darken myself a little bit because we were having wonderful sunny weather as well, but it was like too bright behind me. So
yes. I'll just let the brightness on my head. I feel like, I should have powdered my head down. It's a little glare.
So we have a kind of a special show today. We're going to talk about boxed corners, and I'm going to show you some of my favorite tips and tricks, and we're going to have some information that you can download down the line and all kinds of good things like that, because it really is, we love bags and totes. We
totally
humbly believe that we have some of the most beautiful bags and totes that you can make yourself on Sew for Home. And the box corner is just such a great technique to have in your sewing toolbox. You can use it for so many different things. It's super duper versatile and definitely easier when you're just starting out than doing something like an inset base. And, something like that. Those are also doable. We also have the information on that. But the box corner, you can use it on so many things. Bags and totes for sure. Also fabric baskets and boxes, all those kind of good things. So I brought some of my favorite little finish samples so that we can take a look at it.
Fabulous. Because the wonderful thing about box corners is, of course, then you just add more fullness to your bag. Like anybody can just fold. That's just folded in half. Right. I quickly made this bag, no problem. And you can put a certain amount in it, but you can't really put in a whole lot. So by boxing those corners, you get more.
Right. Now, this one thing I want to show you is that a lot of times people will think about the box corner for something that's like heavier, like the bag that you just held out. This is our color block tote. This is backwards. Oops. I got to think about that. There we go. This is our color block tote. It's all made in just a linen. There's no extra batting or foam or anything like that. It's got a nice wide box corner. So you can see that even something like this that's super soft and crushable, a box corner works wonderfully in that. You don't have to have something stiff, but you can use things that are stiff. This is another super popular tote. This is our wave pocket tote. We've had this one made by so many people so many times. It's just bright and vibrant and fun. And this, of course, has a beautiful box corner, but you can see that it has more stability to it. It's got batting in there along with the quilting cotton. And you can see that these beautiful wave pockets that gets its name from, they wrap all the way around. So you actually put those pockets on first before you box the corners. So even with something that's super thick like that, once again, no problem. You can make a box corner in that and it's going to look beautiful. And also, those are both really big, but you don't have to do big. These are some adorable little zipper pouches. Got some Janome cross stitch embroidery on there. But look at these adorable little box corners. Those are super tiny. But again, they take like kind of a classic zipper pouch. And like Michael was saying, gives you that extra depth so that when you open it up, you can fill it up and you get a little bit more of that depth in the bottom. So yeah, it doesn't have to be a giant tote. You can make just a little itty bitty box corner and it all works exactly the same. Now, one thing that we've also done on a few different totes that we have online, and we like it, especially if you are going to be working with something that you really want there to be a lot of strength. Maybe you're making something that you're planning to have it be like carrying textbooks or whatever. It's going to have a lot of weight. Maybe you're working with super heavy substrates, you've got fusible foam in there, whatever. We do what we call a reverse box corner. So this jumbo beauty is one of our all-weather totes. This is a waterproof canvas. It's been quilted. It's got ripstop in the lining. It's got a polyester batting. So we really wanted something with a bag that's this big, and we want it to be able to hold a lot of things, maybe wet towels and swimsuits. We use this reverse box corner, and it's really made in the same way, but you're just doing it on the outside. So you're going to make that corner, you're going to fold it up so that you've got this super strong corner, and then rivet it, or in this case, we actually used what's called a Chicago screw. And I don't know if that's something, if you all ever have problems with like a really thick layers of something that you want to rivet through, a Chicago screw is a great option for you. You can find it in the hardware section. It literally is a screw, and it has that depth to go through multiple layers, but it still has a very nice finish on the inside. So reverse box corner also.
So we don't have to be from Chicago to get that screw.
You do not.
I think that's brilliant, because yes, a lot of our Janome machines, yes, we can sew through those thicker layers, but to a certain extent, we're not meant to sew through layers like that. So I think that's a great application. When you're getting really thick layers, use some hardware like that screw. I think that's brilliant. And then that way you don't need to worry about it going through your machine, and that hardware makes it look very professional, adds that element of cool to it. Who doesn't like the bling of hardware? So I think that's great.
We've used that reverse box corner, like I said, for some really heavy duty totes, but on a couple of them, we've just used it because it's cool.
Yeah,
to see
absolutely.
it fold up like that. And on one, it's like, I think we call it our summer tote because it's made with stripe, that kind of cabana stripe look to it. And with that one, we actually used a series. We have like 3 rivets around the top of the point. So it becomes a decorative element, and it just looks cool. It's something fun.
Awesome. Oh, I love it. That's what I love about Sew for Home. Always presenting options. You always have options. That's great.
So what I did to try and break it down and make it as easy as possible to go over in, our half an hour that we're going for is I made some of those samples.
Oh, cute.
And this is just a nice soft wool. And so just to kind of go over the steps with you on how to do the most classic box corners. To me, there's 2. The first one is what I would call the traditional flattened box corner, which is what this is. So in this case, you're going to start, I'm going to undo it, with just a classic square or a rectangle. And you've sewed the side seams and you've sewed the bottom seam. And the key here to always remember is keep your seam allowances consistent. So if you start messing around with that, the math, the geometry, it does not work. So you really want to make sure that if you have a 1/2 inch seam allowance along the side, you also have a 1/2 inch seam allowance across the bottom. So then once you have that done, you're going to take your corner and you're going to just kind of pull it apart, and it forms itself into a little peak. You can see the seam allowance coming across there. And you want to pull that apart until the 2 seams are exactly in line front to back. And, you can certainly look to make sure that's there. You can feel it with your fingers. Sometimes I'll even take like a little straight pin and I'll put it in from the back, and I'll make sure that when I push it out, it's coming out right in the seam so that I know that that's going to be even. And flatten that out, and then just lightly pin it towards the top so that you can keep it nice and flat. And then you need to know what your finished corner is going to be. For all the samples that I made for you guys today, I wanted a 3-inch finished corner. And when you have a flattened box like this, you can measure that 2 different ways. So you can take your ruler and you can slide it down from the top until you hit 3 inches at the base of the triangle. So you're sliding it from the top down, and as soon as you hit that 3-inch width, you're going to draw a line across there with your fabric pen or pencil. Now, the other way that you can measure is you can take half of that, so 1.5 inches, and you can measure from the top of your point, and you can measure down 1.5 inches, and you can draw your line across there. So 1.5 inches from the top, 3 inches across. Now, you can see that I have my seam allowances pressed flat. Again, that is a little bit of a personal preference, as well as what kind of fabric you might be working with, whether you want it flat. There's no rules and regulations that say you have to press open your seam allowances. I just feel like it makes it a little bit easier to make sure you have things aligned, but you can certainly press them flat. You can press the seam allowance together in flat, keep them to one side, to the other side. All of that is up to you. But then all you're going to do is put this under your machine, and you're going to stitch across that drawn line through all of your layers. And then you're going to trim away the peak. So you can see that I've stitched across here, and then I've trimmed off that excess, usually about 1/4 inch. Again, a little bit dependent on what type of fabric that you're working with. But yeah, so you're going to stitch across, and then once again, if you have something heavier, if you know it's going to be a bag that you want to be able to have it support a lot of weight, stitch across it again, stitch across it 3 times, give it that nice stability all the way across. You can see I use that hot pink thread so that you can see. And then we're just going to turn it right side out. We're going to reach in there and push out the corners. And we've got our little box corner. Can you see that? And let's make sure that I didn't lie. Yep, it's 3 inches, just like we wanted. So that's kind of a classic, and that's something that you can use on just about anything. If you're working with a heavier substrate, and sometimes just when you're getting going, a lot of people prefer what's called the cutout corner, where you're actually going to cut a corner out of your piece. Now, once again, you're starting with something that's probably a square or a rectangle, and you're going to sew the side seam, you're going to sew the bottom seam, and then you're going to cut out a box that is half the size that you want your corner to be. So that's one of the things to kind of drill into your brain. And so in this case, again, I want it to finish at 3 inches. So my box is going to be 1.5 inches down, 1.5 inches over, and you're going to cut that out. Now, again, personal preference, you can cut it out before you make your seam allowance or after, because we're going to stitch across the cut. So don't worry about the fact that you've broken your seam. That's all right. We're going to secure it when we actually make the corner. But either way works. And either way, you want it to be the half the finished width of your desired corner. And, you know, a lot of times people, their brains kind of explode a little bit on them, because it's like, but what about the seam allowance? And what happens? All I would say is don't stress on the mathematics and the geometry of it too much. Just remember, always keep your seam allowances consistent. And just remember that a diagonal is always wider than a square. So those straight edges of a square are always going to be narrower than a diagonal. So that's why it all works. So you've got your corner cut out, you've got your seams that are sewn, then you're going to align them in a similar fashion to how you did with the flattened corner. So again, you want to make sure that those seam allowances match front to back. That seam is nicely centered on both sides. You're going to add a little pin there. And now you're just going to sew across that diagonal using the same seam allowance that you did for the side and the bottom. So I had a 1/2 inch seam, so that means I'm going to sew a 1/2 inch seam across. And again, sew it once, sew it twice, sew it 3 times, whatever is going to be best for your finished project. So let's try this one. So you don't have anything to trim away, unless for some reason you want it to be even narrower, but in that case, you're not trimming away anything else because you already have the same seam allowance. So here's our little box corner. I feel like I'm a little puppeteer. So let's take our ruler again, and once again, make sure that I didn't lie. Yep, it's 3 inches. This is hard to do because the camera's the wrong way. But anyway, it is 3 inches, so that works too. And then one other little thing that I did kind of want to talk about is you don't always have to have 2 seams. I get asked about that sometimes. Every once in a while, we'll make a bag that maybe the panels are turned slightly differently. Maybe we want our seam to go down the front so it looks more like a classic leather bag. Maybe you just have one piece that you're folding all the way up and around, and then you have no bottom seam. You're just going to have your 2 side seams. A box corner will still work. You just need to make sure that you're keeping things as flat and as centered as possible. So for this little guy, that's kind of like my theory. I'm just going to have one piece that's going to wrap around so there's no bottom seam. So I'm just going to sew both of my side seams, and then I'm going to flatten it so that that one seam is going right down the center. And take the time, make sure it's like, okay, is that the same? Is this the same over here? Is this going to go nice and flat all the way down? Pin it, check it from both sides. And again, stitch across on your drawn line. Once, twice, 3 times. Trim away that little ear. And again, you have a beautiful box corner, but there's no bottom seam, but it's still super pretty, and it's still 3 inches. Yay. So those are probably the 3 basic corners that you're going to use the most often. And I would say 9 times out of 10, if you're working with a pattern, like of course you've gone to Sew for Home and you're working with the wonderful Sew for Home pattern, we're going to tell you what the box corner is designed to be. And whether we used a flattened corner or we used a cut out corner, we're going to tell you the dimensions and all that kind of good stuff. But what if you are super proficient and you're ready to just start designing your own bags? How do you figure it out? How do you work the math? And so we have, if you go to Sew for Home and you look up how to box corners, it's going to go through all of these steps for you with the basic ones, and then it's going to give you the formulas at the bottom to work out what your starting cuts need to be. And because we love our friends at Janome Canada, we turned those formulas into a 2-page PDF for you. We're both going to show you.
Ah, yes. Exactly. And so all that math is all in here, and it shows the different corners, the notch
cutout corner.
there, and then the fold there. So yes, fabulous.
And so like I said, the information is at Sew for Home, and we had, as they say, we had a little bit of technical difficulty.
Yes, I couldn't figure out how to put this in the comments. So and the camera shakes. So when our fabulous marketing guru, as I call him, Alan, our marketing coordinator, comes back, he's on some vacation, some much deserved vacation time. When he comes back to the office next week, I will ask him, Alan, can we put this up on our Janome Canada website? Can we put this in our social media? When I load this video onto the Janome HQ YouTube channel, for example, in my description, I'd like to have a link to this, and people can then just click on the link and be able to download this. So that's coming to Janome Canada next week.
And that's really handy. I think that the thing to keep in mind, and again, this is kind of outlined here for you, but when you're designing your own bag, what you have to remember are all the different pieces. So, and you have to think to yourself, okay, when this is all done, I want my bag to be 13 and a half inches tall. So what is my flat cut height going to be? And I think a lot of times people forget about the depth of what all is going on there. So you have to remember that you have that finished height, but then you also have whatever the finished depth is of your corner.
Yes, which would be
like that.
Which would be,
so you have half of that
part there. Yeah.
Right. You've got it coming down. You've got it going halfway around because we're only dealing with one side of the bag. And then don't forget the seam allowance. So say in this case, I want a 4-inch base. That's easier to divide in half. So I've got my 13 and a half inches when it's finished. I'm going to add another 2 inches to that because it's going to need to fold under. And then I'm going to add another 1/2 inch for my seam allowance. So that means that my cut height is going to be 13 and a half plus 2 plus 1/2. So 16 inches tall. So those are the things that are going to be available for you on this little form, both the how to figure the depth, how to figure the height, how to figure the width, so that you can start designing your own bags.
Yeah, which is very exciting. Do you always use a 1/2 inch seam allowance most of the time when you're doing bag construction?
We really do. I think for most home deck sewing, that tends to be the most accepted standard. So we tend to use a 1/2 inch almost all the time. And really the only time that we would vary for that is if we're doing, if we're going to turn something into a flat felled seam, or if we have like a super, super fine fabric, we might opt to go down to a 1/4 inch or something. But you can certainly do it, like say with one of these little cutie pies here with the little teeny tiny corners. You could certainly do that with all 1/4 inch seams. So these are all just quilting cottons. There is some interfacing in there, but if you wanted to use a 1/4 inch seam, go for it. Just make sure everything is a 1/4 inch. So this seam,
consistency. I like that. Consistency is the key. It's so true.
It is, and it is really what makes the difference in having everything line up so pretty, because that's what you want. That is, part of it's great for depth and for stability, but it's also super pretty. And especially when you do have like a solid color, it really is pretty to see all of those beautiful lines just come together perfectly. So make sure those seam allowances are consistent, and make sure you take that extra time when you're pulling apart the corner or you're pulling apart your cutout, that you're lining up those 2 seam allowances so they're going to perfectly match.
Oh, that definitely helps elevate the quality of the, you're very proud to say, yes, I did it myself. Look at that match. As opposed to, oh yeah, I did it myself. Don't look at that match. No,
Don't look at that down there.
time, do it. We've all done that. No, don't look too closely. But yeah, we want to try to make it look, very good, very polished, very professional. So it's well worth it, and actually quite simple to do with a bit of practice, and you'll be a pro at no time.
It really is very, very simple. And I think a lot of people, anytime you even start to move into three-dimensional anything when you're sewing, people start running away.
But again, for right now, everybody can jump on Sew for Home and get their PDF immediately. Again, it will be available in Janome, Canada next week. But yes, if you're really excited to get going, make sure to go to Sew for Home. Definitely check out all the fabulous, oh my God, you've got bags and bags and bags, like so many opportunities of, they can be super big or even, start maybe super small. You don't always have to start off with something really big, but a great project to use up scraps too.
Oh yes, for sure. So that was, boxed corners in 30 minutes or less. And
we did it. Yay.
We did it. And we are getting together again on, if I check my calendar, the 18th, August 18th.
Oh, yes.
And we have something very special to tease people with. Now, I can't remember if it wasn't last month, because last month you came from the show. So I think
it would have been in May. Oh, that seems like so long ago.
It's crazy. But we did show people a little tiny tease of some hobby patches, some machine embroidery patches that we are designing exclusively for Janome, Canada. And the first 4, there's a set of 7. The first 4 are done. And so we're going to give you just like a little hint.
I am so excited to sew these out. I think they'll be so sweet.
There we go. We have, they're upside down. So we have a little adventure and mindful and walking on the road again.
Yes, I love that. That was my favorite.
So yes, they just whooshed by, but we're going to have lots and lots of fun with them, and they'll be in all of the appropriate Janome machine embroidery formats, so you can download them. And I know, Ellen, Michael, you're still working with Alan on the best way to kind of put these up, but you're thinking maybe once a month?
Yes, exactly. We thought, wouldn't this be very fun? And of course, that we build the momentum of, we'll go on to Janome.ca, and they'll probably be under the Inspire tab or the Sew for Home tab that we have on Janome.ca. So you can click on Sew for Home, and we've had a number of embroidery collections that Liz has put out for Sew for Home, and it's been a whole collection that you would have to go to the Janome dealer to get. Well, now with these, we think, they're so adorable that we could maybe do once a month. So then you need to keep checking back, once a month to get your embroidery design that'll be there just on the website, and then go to your Janome dealer to get your fabulous Madeira stabilizer and all your fabulous Madeira thread and all of that to stitch it out. But then, yes, once a month, then we can meet and then show, hey, this is what we did, and this is how we use those patches. And how you use them is up to you.
Oh, totally up to you. And they're a good size. They're about 3.5 to 4 inches. And so super great on a jeans jacket, on a back pocket, on a
backpack, on your bags, on your bags. Yes. Yes. And then it's really wonderful. And I so appreciate it, Liz, because so many times we do all these fabulous projects, but then we say, you need the fabulous new CM17, or you need the 15,000, or you need the 550E. And then those people that don't have those machines go, hey, like, what about me? So I really appreciate that you've done all of these embroideries. They'll fit up in pretty much any Janome embroidery machine. No problem. Really, it doesn't matter which one.
Right. You just need, like I said, they're about at the most 4 inches. So as long as you have like a 5-inch hoop, which is pretty standard on any of the
certainly modern day machines. We still have some people with the original 8,000 from eons ago. So, okay, maybe now you'll have to upgrade to get that bigger hoop. but pretty much all current Janome embroidery machines, no problem.
Right. So we'll start talking about that next month. Same bat time, same bat channel. Any questions or anything on box corners before we wrap it up?
Now, Valerie, who's in the UK, is wondering if we could post an image of the Chicago screw. She said it might be hard to find in the UK. But
yeah, and I wonder,
if you literally just Googled Chicago
screw, I bet you would find it. It might be called something else in the UK, but I doubt it. Let me just take,
because I don't have a picture of it, but I wondered, yes, if we would just Google Chicago screw or something very similar, maybe in the going into the hardware store and showing them the
I'm just kind of
home site to say, hey, I need that.
I'm just looking at them. I'm not seeing them called anything else. So I think if you were to just Google, even from the UK, Google Chicago screw, you will find it. Yeah, I'm happy to send you a link after we're done. But it's a screw in, and then the back of it has like a shaft that it goes into. So the inside is really nice and flat. It's not like a screw and a nut. It's actually a screw and then a shaft that comes over the bottom of the screw, and they screw together. So it's flat on both sides. They use them a lot in book binding. That's the other thing. Like if you
okay, now I know like exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, any of our writers out there or people who are trying to, sell their next movie script, oftentimes those big bulky sets, those are Chicago.
And they're nice and smooth on the inside.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So maybe hardware store, and if not, maybe a bookbinder. That's interesting. or just a hobby store.
Yeah. Or just, I'm sure you could find it online as well. Just.
Oh, that's true too. Yes.
Quick search on Chicago screw. Like I said, I just did that right now on Google, and I'm not seeing them called anything else. So you should.
Oh, okay, cool. So maybe even take a picture, print a picture, and take it to the store. That's often what I do. I need this. I don't know what it's called, because then again, they may call it something more technical, but I'm like, I need this. So maybe try that. Yeah, that's a great idea. Oh, I'm so excited. And yes, next month, I'm very, very excited to talk about these patches, because of course we've got some new goodies from Janome that will tie in with these patches perfectly. So all secrets will be revealed next month.
And it'll be great because your wonderful Janome educator minds will have some time to think about it as well, because you'll have the files and everything to start playing with next week. And so we'll see what you come up with. We'll look at what we came up with. So it'll be fun.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And again, that every month everybody can, share to our Janome social media and So For Home and tag all of us and say, this is what I did with my patch. This is what I did with my patch. So having it over the course of the rest of the summer and, over the course of the winter, I think gives us all something to look forward to, especially as we start getting into winter.
Right. And there, it's a nice, I know, there's a nice wide range. And so they would, as we say, great gift idea, so there's 7 different hobbies. I'm sure that we can find somebody on your gift list that needs this on a cute little bag or a blanket or backpack.
Oh, it'll be so adorable. So many applications. Sharon is wondering what size of screw, the Chicago screw.
Well, that's going to depend completely on what you're making.
Thickness.
Yeah, the thickness of what you need to go through. And they are going to be measured through the center. So 1/4 of an inch, a 1/2 inch. That's the measurement they're going to give you. So I would have to go online. I don't for this little bad boy. I can't remember exactly what it was, but
it looks about 1/2 of an inch.
Probably 1/4 of an inch or a 1/2 inch. Let's see if I can find it just really quick.
Oh, cool. So at least somebody. Now, ultimately, the So For Home website for that fabulous bag, it lists the Chicago screw there.
Right.
And what size it is.
called the Bright Spot Weather Ready Tote. I'm just looking here what we had. All right, so we have here that you need 2 Chicago screws. We actually link to one source. It's probably either Tandy Leather or Amazon. You need, in this case with ours, so again, this is a heavy duty waterproof canvas. On the outside, it's a polyester batting, and then it's a ripstop on the inside, and then there's lots and lots of layers. So we used a post depth of 1/4 inch, 6 millimeter.
Okay.
And then you can also specify the diameter of the head. So the head of the screw was 1/2 inch. And so, yeah, it's going to depend on what you're working with, what you're making. But again, they're just basic hardware. So they're going to be super cheap too. So
even better. You know, when they put them in the craft store, they jump the price up. So, yes, it's just fun to go in and see what you can come up with.
Yeah. All righty.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you. Again, so many resources from the fabulous Liz Johnson from Sew for Home. I so appreciate everybody asking questions and jumping in. This is exactly what we love, that interaction, and find out, again, what you guys want to learn and explore. And yes, thank you everyone for joining us today. Again, this will live on the Janome Canada Facebook page under the videos tab, so you'll always be able to find it. Of course, scroll back in the feed, but you can always find it under the videos tab. And then I'm going to load it to the Janome HQ YouTube channel, so all of you who then tell your friends to say, oh, it's okay. Those, if you don't have a Facebook account, they can watch on the Janome HQ YouTube channel as well.
Excellent. Yay.
So lovely. Then we will see the fabulous Liz again next. It was April 18th at 3 p.m.
August 18th.
April. We will see her in April too, but then yes, August.
We'll start with August.
That other A month. Yes. August 18th at 3 p.m. Eastern.
Yep. All right.
Oh, thank you so much, everyone. Enjoy your fabulous day. Again, make sure you go to Sew for Home to download your fabulous Box Corner formulas, which will be up soon on the Janome Canada site.
That's right. All righty then.
Okay. Thank you so much, everyone. Enjoy your fabulous day.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.